The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
At that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now a man there named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was. But he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." And he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they saw all this, they began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor. And if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a descendant of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what was lost." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The reaction of all of the crowd to this Zacchaeus wasn't all that ill-founded. He obviously admitted that he had extorted money, and that was typical of the tax collectors of the time. Everyone knew what tax they really owed, but the tax collector would always ask for more than what they owed. No matter what they did to object, he would extort the money out of them, skim the top, put it in his own pocket, and that would be that. So you can understand there's a number of reasons why they didn't like the tax collector. Also because he really represented a government that kept them into subjection. So Zacchaeus wasn't somebody who really was loved. And I really love this gospel, and I really love Zacchaeus because I can see this little short guy trying to figure ways so we can see this Jesus. And 2 things came to my mind in that. First of all, he'd heard about this Jesus. And I kind of wonder whether he had maybe leaked out among his tax collector friends, "What do you think about this thing?" And I could just see them coming down on him hard, saying, "Are you kidding? What are you talking about, this crazy stuff?" But that curiosity was there. He was curious, a healthy curiosity. The second thing is Jesus knew his name. Now we can all say Jesus knows everybody's name, but he didn't probably. But he must have heard of Zacchaeus. Or maybe when he was scrambling up the tree, he goes, "What's that?" And says, "Oh, it's the tax collector." And you can imagine, obviously, the shock of the crowd and the delight of Zacchaeus when he said, "I'm going to come to your house." Funny thing, he didn't say, "Follow me." He says, "I'm going to come to your house." I think of 2 people who had a real heart for those people who, generally speaking, are rejected by society. The society of Jesus will be tax collectors, lepers, that sort of thing. And 2 people. One of them was Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa would speak in Beverly Hills to a society that spent enough on their pets that they have more than enough money for her to serve all of the poor in Calcutta. In fact, the other day I went by a billboard, and there was a thing like a spa for dogs. You know, right? Spa for dogs. And there's a dog with sunglasses and like a tropical drink. So you would think that she said, maybe you could take a little of that money you're wasting on those animals, like little booties, that sort of thing, and you could help me a lot by money. Money will help us. But she didn't say that. She says the worst thing about being poor is isolation and loneliness, not feeling love. And I dare say she probably didn't bring all of those people into a hospital where all of their ills were cured, but they had somebody there loving them when they died. The other person I'm thinking of is Virginia Satir. See, the one who nods her head, Virginia Satir. She was part of the Avanta network. You still paying your dues? Okay. And that is a gal named Virginia Satir. She is a very, very famous, I don't know, I guess you call her a therapist, but definitely she had her own ideas. And one of the things they noticed about Virginia Satir is when she ever came into contact with somebody who was, let's say, society would have, get away from, like if they were mentally ill, they could only act crazy in her presence for a little bit of time. Because she accepted them in her heart as though they were normal. And no matter what they did, she would respond in a normal way. Probably also, your behavior is a little bit inappropriate, don't you think? She'd be saying this to schizophrenic. And before you knew it, they had to behave like people who were sane. Jesus seemed to have that effect on Zacchaeus, Amazing thing, he came and he said, I'm coming into your life. I'm going to come into your home. And guess what happened? It changed his life. It wasn't a matter of all sorts of effort. It was that encounter with Christ that made the difference for Zacchaeus. We have a lot of people in our society, and oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? Here they are again. So I'm going to pass out a picture on this side. And if I haven't filed it up, yeah, I got the same picture. Now, pass that along. Pass that along. That's okay, I'll get it. Pass that along. Okay? Now, this would, I think, be a typical photograph of somebody we would try to avoid at all costs. And like people probably thought about Zacchaeus, he's this, he's this, he's this, he's this, He's cheating, he's irretrievable. What is he doing around Christ? What is Christ doing around him? All of our normal thoughts about what's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. So when you look at this picture here, I just want you to see it, and think about what we might think of that individual if we ran into her. Now, hear what her story really is. She's homeless. After her mother and her only son died, Susan couldn't keep up the payments on their home, and the bank foreclosed. Desperate and grief-stricken, she took to living in her car. With her, she took a few mementos of her son and the ring her mother had worn until her death. But when the police noticed the registration sticker had expired on her license plate, they pulled her over. They impounded the car and would not allow her to remove any of her belongings. With no money to get her car back or pay the fine, Susan wandered the streets homeless. Half crazed from the lack of sleep and grief, she fell asleep in the Farmington Hills Public Library one day. She awoke to find the police standing over her. They arrested her for an infraction stemming from the unpaid car fines. No more able to pay the fines than before, Susan was handcuffed and taken to jail. 2 weeks later, authorities confiscated her license and then released her. Back on the street, her life went from bad to worse. Sometimes she slept in shelters, but other homeless people stole anything she had, so she began sleeping outside. One night, Susan was physically attacked while sleeping in a public park. She fought her assailant off, but he slammed his body against her so hard that he broke one of her ribs. Shortly afterward, she found her way to Laguna Beach. She hoped to locate an uncle, but when she got there, he was nowhere to be found. Susan's circumstances have only gotten worse since then. Because she's never been a resident of Laguna, she's not eligible to sleep at Laguna's alternative sleeping location on the Canyon Road, the ASL. She's been allowed to eat with the homeless people who stay at the ASL, but each day when dinner is over, the door is locked, and a lottery allows a few non-residents to stay inside, but the only option for those not picked is to sleep on the asphalt in the ASL parking lot. That is where Susan has been sleeping nearly every night. There is no bathroom, no porta potty in the parking lot. Susan suffers from a medical condition known as cystitis, or OAB, overactive bladder, making the situation worse. A few weeks ago, October 15th, Susan was ejected from Laguna's ASL permanently. She can no longer even get food there. She says she was told to never come back. A local resident found her several days after she had been banned from the ASL. Her ankles had become so swollen she could barely walk. She took her to Mission Hospital where an x-ray revealed 2 severely sprained ankles. The emergency room staff wrapped her ankles and gave her ankle braces and then turned her back out on the street. Since that day, Susan has been sleeping on the steps of one of the churches. Guess. I'm sharing Susan's story because I know Laguna Beach wants to be known as a compassionate community. But how can we honestly call ourselves compassionate when we allow inhumane treatment of the homeless to continue? What would it take for us to look at the homeless not as a problem, but as an opportunity to truly practice the core principle of every great religion, do unto others as you'd want done unto you? What would it take for us to unzip our hearts and truly become a compassionate community? This lady has picked out 12 things that this woman needs. Interestingly enough, and maybe going through your mind, she's got to be partially responsible for this. You don't get kicked out of some place for no reason at all. However, Google provided every one of these facts were true. It was researched that all these things happened. You know, maybe she should have been stronger. Maybe she should have been more resilient. Maybe she should have fought people off. Maybe she should have had a better way to articulate what her situation was and get herself out of it. But she didn't. And as far as the shelter is concerned, it's pretty well known that many of those people who work in that shelter are not trained and themselves are criminals out of jail. So when somebody becomes a problem, which she could have been, it doesn't have to be much of a problem. With a bladder problem, it was really, you're in that bathroom too long and too much. These people just threw her out. And the words I've heard that they use of those people who are there, what the people they serve, include bitch and other things I can't even repeat. So Laguna Beach has a problem that it has to solve, and I suppose I'll be sucked into that. I think I should be. But the other thing is this. It's about humanity. It's about the fact that outside of our window there's all sorts of bedding right there in that little alcove. So somebody is living there. They might not be the poster child like this person is, who, by the way, the other thing you might think, well, if she would just give up drinking, doesn't drink. If she just gave up drugs, doesn't take drugs. The complicated thing is that she's a vegan. I can't afford to feed her. I went and got her some sort of, imitation, McNuggets, made out of soybeans, So she's not a person who really fits into the normal, let's say, story that some of these people have. So I'm just saying, Zacchaeus didn't follow Jesus, but Jesus, he invaded his life. And I'm going to put out some envelopes outside. I'm going to take them home, bring them back the next time. And at the end, I want to pass the basket a second time to see if we can be helpful in this particular case. Because the needs that she has go back to the doctor for her feet, dental work. She's in agonizing pain. She needs medicine for her cystitis. She needs a bus pass. She needs transportation to the doctor. Of course, bus pass would help. She needs to get an ID card from California, so it takes a little bit of research to go back to her, to get her birth certificate. She needs food, she needs shelter, she needs grief counseling, and she needs your prayers, kindness, and friendship. And she needs an advocate for a better life. So the lady who's kind of like the Mother Teresa of Laguna Beach is a little naive, but not too naive. She would just like to have one of the families of the church adopt her and bring her into the home. Well, I'll tell you what, she's also got scabies. She ain't getting in my home. That's another medication that she needs. Guess what? Saw the doctor, scabies. $20 gift certificate for Walmart. Medication's $80. And after you go through one treatment, you have to wait. You have to go through another on scabies or no? You have to do two treatments. So, you know, it wasn't so much, I mean, that's not my thing. You know, my thing is not to take care of those people who are homeless. But the question was asked to me, if I throw her out of that little alcove that you see in the picture, which is right outside of our church, they said, where's she going to go? Where's she going to go? It's freezing there. It's damp there. It's way open there. But at least she can put her stuff together and sleep. And so I didn't tell her she could, but I didn't tell her she couldn't. If you can help, this was just one example, and this is going to be week after week. I'm just going to make this homily, one example of what we can do to make the world a better place. Our job is not to get thousands of people here. We tried and want to come. Our job is when we go out, because we were here, the world is a little bit better place than when we came in. And Jesus is a pretty good example of that. Please rise and profess our faith.